Good morning, everybody. We're going to give it just another minute or two before we get started, but we'd like to welcome you to the Florida Friendly Landscaping webinar series. Give it just another minute or two before we get started. Okay, well, it looks like most people have had a chance to get on. I can see that the attendees are slowing down here, and it is 10:01. So go ahead and be respectful of everybody's time and get started. Once again, I just want to say good morning and welcome to a special edition of the Florida Friendly Landscaping's professional webinar series. Your microphones have been muted, so please put your questions in the chat box and we will take them at the end of the presentation. This webinar is going to be recorded and available on our website. Should you want to watch it again or pass along the link to a coworker or other friend, that will be available to you. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Tom Wickman to introduce today's speakers.
Great. Thank you, Claire. My name is Tom Wickman. I am the statewide GIBMP coordinator for the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. And it's my pleasure to be able to introduce our speakers. Today, we'll have Dr. Bryan Unruh. He's a professor in the Environmental Horticulture Department and Associate Center Director at the University of Florida IFAS West Florida Research and Education Center. He's been with UF since 1996. Dr. Unruh's research program focuses on providing real-world solutions for today's turfgrass manager. His work focuses on water quality and water quantity concerns. Also with us today is Christina Woerner McInnis, sorry, Christina, who's the CEO and founder of Agritech Corp. Christina understands the importance of soil testing and the challenges that have existed in this area over the years. So she developed Soil Kit to help make soil testing easier and more meaningful for clients. Today, Bryan and Christina will share information about this new partnership established between the University of Florida and Agritech Corporation and the tools that are now available to you through Soil Kit. So it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Dr. Bryan Unruh.
All right, thank you, Tom. Man, I've been here since January of 1996. I had hair when I showed up at the University of Florida, Tom. And so anyway, as Tom said in my the intro or my bio is, I'm all about trying to provide, real world solutions to the challenges that we face in the landscape. And so this discussion today really is to center around one of those solutions that really has been in the works since I arrived in January of 1996. And so we'll unpack this brand new UF IFAS soil test kit that is powered by Soil Kit. And today's just an introduction. And it kind of to set the stage, I want to give us a little bit of the why. Why are we where we are at? And I'm going to intersperse some of that throughout our time here this morning. And so there is a tremendous debate going on. And in fact, this debate kind of hit a little bit of a new level yesterday in the some of the media across the state. But the reality is that Florida's urban landscapes have been the center of debate regarding their contribution to Florida's water quality challenges. Now, you don't have to go too far or read too many newspaper articles to realize that water quality concerns are quite valid. And we see that really all over the state. The algae blooms, the red tide, and all that. And there's a tremendous debate as to, who's contributing. Well, the reality is that we all are contributing to this challenge or to this problem. If you flush the toilet today, you've contributed to that problem. When we fertilize landscapes, we potentially contribute to that problem. When we fuel our vehicles and a little bit of fuel hits the ground, we've contributed to this water quality challenge. But we also know, and you as green industry professionals work for people who desire to have a beautiful landscape. And so these two can occur simultaneously. There can be impacts. And we see a lot of concern out there, when you're fertilizing the lawn, remember, you're not just fertilizing the lawn. And it says here, this was a little piece that was put together actually up near the Pensacola area. And this is when you fertilize the lawn, then it rains, the rain washes the fertilizer along the curb into the storm drain and directly into our waterways. The nutrients encourage algae to grow, using up oxygen that fish need to survive, resulting in fish kills. So if you fertilize, please follow directions and use sparingly. Now, there's some inaccuracies in that statement, because our goal was to fertilize the lawn, not the curb. But we also know, there's BMPs on, if fertilizer gets, slung out into the street, that we will make sure we get the blower and blow it back in. We want to make sure we're using, a side deflector on our spreaders so that we don't put it out into the street. And so we also know that research shows fairly overwhelmingly that when you fertilize a lawn properly, and that lawn is healthy and dense, that very little of it will move off site. And that research, and I've been doing this since 1996, there's tremendous amount of research that then is incorporated into our best management practice guides and manuals that we have here in Florida. And so on the left, this handbook for home landscapes through the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, the best management practices for the protection of water resources by the green industry, the GIBMP folks. A big part of my world are these two on the right, best management practices for golf courses and for sod production. So this research that we do that documents or our impacts, those results then kind of tick down into best management practices, which then are incorporated in these documents that then are guiding documents for the industry. And when we think about plant growth, whether it's the ornamentals in the landscape, whether it's the turf grass, whatever it is, water, light, temperature, and nutrition are the drivers. And so when we think about water, light, and temperature in particular, those are the three big drivers. Rarely do problems in the landscape start with nutrition. They generally are more related to water, light, temperature. Too much, too little, not enough, too much shade, not enough, too much water. But then nutrition does come into play. And when we think about nutrition and we think about fertilization, BMPs, we really should have a goal of when the goal of proper nutrient management is to apply the minimum, and minimum is the key word, the minimum necessary nutrients to achieve acceptable quality, and then apply those nutrients in a manner that maximizes their plant uptake. And so when we think about inputs of nutrients, not fertilizer, but nutrients, minerals from soil. So our soils contain nutrients. When we think about fertilization and reclaimed water, obviously fertilizer contains nutrients, and oftentimes so does our reclaimed water. When it rains, we know that certain nutrients are delivered through that rain to the urban landscape. And then we also know the deposition of organic residues. And so when we think about when we return the clippings, or where we have thatch accumulation in turfgrass, or leaf litter, when the trees shed their leaves, that leaf litter is the deposits organic residues, and those organic residues can break down and provide nutrients to the plant. And then there are outputs, and we think about clipping removal, gaseous loss, conversion to unavailable forms, or leaching and runoff, which is where that environmental impact piece comes in. And so again, our goal is to provide the minimum necessary nutrients to achieve an acceptable quality, and then do it in such a way that we maximize their uptake and use by the plant, so that we can minimize this loss or piece that is there. Now, I think it's important to go back to 8th grade and to remind everybody of the periodic table of the elements, because so oftentimes we have different folks that believe that we are dumping all of these elements into the environment, wherein the reality is they're already there. Now, we tend to move them from one place to the other, but these elements, the periodic table of elements, these have been around since before you and me. Those with the yellow circles, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, of course, are provided through the air and the rain that impacts the environment. The ones in the red circles, potassium, nitrogen. Oop, we got an error here. Silicon should not be red. Phosphorus should be red. Those are what we call the macronutrients. They're required in the greatest amount by the plant. And then the ones in the blue are secondary or minor elements. And we think about things like magnesium, molybdenum, manganese, iron, nickel, copper, zinc, sulfur, boron. Those are essential elements. The plant has to have them to complete their life cycle, but they're required typically in very, very small quantities. And so we have these elements. We're growing the plant in the soils in our environment, and we come to this process of soil testing. And the proper tenets, or the tenets of proper soil testing, include these 4 factors. And we're going to unpack these because they're critically important to understand what is in the soil. And then that should then, with that understanding, then that dictates then what we would put on the ground in the form of fertilizer. And so there are 4 factors here: sampling, testing, interpretations, and recommendations. And I want us to unpack each of these and build the case of why we have entered into this partnership with Agritech to bring a whole new realm of soil testing to the landscape industry. And so let's talk about sampling for a second, because soil sampling, the process of when you go out and collect these samples, it's probably the greatest source of error in this entire process. And so, you know, the report that comes back from the laboratory is only as good as the sampling that was done in the field. And proper sampling involves ensuring that the soil sample that you take accurately represents the area where the turf or the landscape will be grown or is growing. And so soil samples really should be taken from the depth in which most of the roots of the plant exist. And for turf and landscape soils, that's typically that top 4, maybe 6 inches. And so when we take the soil, we want to make sure that we ensure that that soil is from that depth. That has a tremendous impact on the recommendations that come from the lab as well. And so when we use a soil probe or a garden spade, we want to take about 10 or 15 random samples from the areas that are in question. We want to avoid mixing soil from healthy areas with soil from the unhealthy areas. And so maybe you have a portion of the landscape that is really good and a portion of the landscape that is really bad. My recommendation would be to take 2 samples from that site, one from the good and one from the bad. If you mix the good and the bad together, you're going to get an average of those 2, which will not accurately reflect what comes down for recommendation. And so once we have these 10 or 15 random samples from the areas in question, we want to thoroughly mix the soil, and then we're going to place a small portion, about a cup of soil, into the soil sample bag. Graphically, what does that look like? So I just pulled a Google image. If we look at this landscape here, just look at the overall quality of that landscape, and everything looks fairly uniform in this particular example. We don't see any large dead spots, relatively uniform green color. Therefore, we could probably take a sample from this entire landscape and put it together and send it off. We come next door here, and we kind of see an area here in the middle of the backyard that doesn't look real good. You know, a little bit greener over here on the edge, front yard. We've got some areas here. So this might be one where the front yard in general looks better than the backyard. Backyard looks worse, and so it may be where we would want to take 1 sample from the back, 1 sample from the front, just so we get an indication of what's going on as well. Sometimes construction practices dictate some very big differences. And I show you here, this is a bulkhead with fill soil back in here. And it doesn't look too bad. We come up here to the front yard of this home, and it doesn't look good at all. And I'll point back to this image here in a second when I put up a couple example soil reports to show you how this may be. So fill soil versus native soil in the front. Obviously, the health of the landscape is different amongst these 2 sites. So that's the sampling side. Make sure we have the right depth, make sure we take an appropriate number of samples, make sure those samples are representative of the area that is being, where the landscape is being grown. And then we come to the testing side. And so you put that little soil in the bag, you put it in a mailer, and you send it off to the lab. Once it gets to the lab, they start the process of actually conducting the test. And soil testing procedures focus on extraction or digestion of that sample. And the purpose of the extractant is to determine the quantity of an element. Remember those 17 elements from the periodic table of elements? We want to determine the quantity of an element that would be representative of or correlates to what will be available for plant uptake during the growing season. And the method employed is specific to the nutrients that are being evaluated, the geographic region, and the physiographic or mineralogical nature of the sampling site. And so when the soil comes in, it's in that little bag. They're going to take that soil out. They're going to dry it. They're going to grind it up a little bit so that it's very uniform in size. They're going to put it in these little crucibles, these little cups, and then they are going to add an extractant to that little bit of soil. And then the extractant is a chemical solution that includes some water and some acids and certain organic chemicals, and it's mixed with that soil that you collected and sent to the lab. And upon mixing, then that chemical solution extracts nutrients that are bound to the soil, similar to just natural processes that are going on out in the environment, making those nutrients available to the plant. So nutrients are bound to the soil. And then over time, those nutrients are released from the soil into the soil solution. That's the water mixed with those nutrients that then the roots are growing in, and then the roots will take that nutrient up. And so after mixing, then the sample's liquid portion is filtered, and then they run it through the lab instruments. And the results of the liquid analysis are then converted to the dry soil basis, and we refer to that as the soil test index. And these are the values that you will see on a soil test report. And again, they're an indication of the soil's ability to supply nutrients to the plant. And so here's an example from the soil kit platform, showing the results in pounds per 1,000 square feet. And then you see these numbers, 0.04, 694, so on and so forth. We look down here to phosphorus, 0.53, and zinc. And so these numbers, these are the results that are coming out of this soil test process. Now, soil extractants differ. And this is a key question, whether you use the soil kit that we're talking about today, whether you use the old method of where the soil simply goes to the lab down in Gainesville, or whether you're sending your samples through a third party. So a lot of times your fertilizer manufacturers may provide soil testing for you. You've got to know which soil test is being used. And for Florida soils, we use the Malick 3 soil test. Now, you could be sending the samples through, say, a supplier, and they send them to wherever, Michigan, North Carolina, Mississippi, who knows where they're sending these. You have to know which soil test is being used so that when we talk about the IFAS recommendations, our recommendations are all based off of a Malick 3 soil test. If you came in and were using Bray 1, for example, or if the lab was using Bray and you got a number, that number will not line up with our University of Florida recommendations. And they do not generally easily, you can't convert one to the other. Now, Malick 1 and Malick 3, you can. As well. And so we've talked about the sampling side of things. That's you in the field taking the sample, putting it in the little bag. The little bag gets in the mail, heads off to the lab. The lab then does the test. And then the test just generates those numbers of what is in the soil. And then there's this matter of interpretation and this matter of recommendations. And it's these two areas that historically have created considerable confusion and frustration amongst those in the green industry. There are three different, well, there's more than three, but there are three primary interpretation philosophies. And so you get the results back from the lab and it tells you how much, nutrient is in the soil. Well, then what do you do with that information? Ultimately, we're trying to get to a fertilizer recommendation, but between the soil test and the recommendation, we have to have an interpretation. And so there are three primary, and one is to build up and maintain. And so this is where soil nutrients should be increased. This philosophy is that you increase the nutrients of the soil up to a high level, and then you maintain them based upon the plant removing. So as the grass is growing, as the ornamentals are growing, they're extracting those nutrients, and then we would feed the soil to replace those nutrients that are lost. There are flaws with that method. And that approach also has some pretty high negative environmental implications. Again, our goal of nutrient management was to provide the minimum amount of nutrients and to maximize their assimilation by the plant. We don't want to load the soil up because we get a lot of rain, we have environmental conditions and hurricanes and storms that come along. And if you have a high level of nutrients in the soil, those can leach out before they're being used by the plant. Second one is base saturation. CEC should be occupied by a specific ratio of calcium, magnesium, potassium, and hydrogen. And we talk about soil balancing with this philosophy. This too is a fairly flawed method, and almost no turfgrass soil scientist would support this approach, because there's an assumption that you can load up the exchange sites on the soil with certain ratio of these nutrients, and then they magically end up in the plant. And that is not a viable method as well. And then the third is sufficiency level, and that's where we add enough nutrients to meet the plant response goals. No nutrients are added when a plant response is not expected at a given soil nutrient level. And this is the feed the plant approach, and it is the best approach for us to use. So here are a couple of examples. This is our old, the IFAS soil test report that comes out, and it's got a ton of information on here. And so here we see the soil nutrients. Again, we're using Malic 3. You see phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and then you see these levels. And here is this interpretation piece: high, medium, high. And then from this interpretation, then you get the recommendation that comes down the line. So that's one approach. This is an analysis. Remember, I was talking about that front yard and that backyard, and the backyard looked pretty good up against that bulkhead. Notice here that soil pH in that bulkhead, in that backyard was 6.8. The pH in the front yard was 4.5. And so right there is a tremendous variability. Had you taken one soil sample from the whole landscape, you would have probably got an average pH somewhere between 6.8 and 4.5. And so you would have not been treating those two sites differently. Another example, or these are just some other A&L reports, Central Florida soil testing. So lots of information, and a lot of times this information can be quite overwhelming. It's just too much information, and how do you digest this information as well? Well, let's talk a few things about our soil test, our IFAS recommendations. Okay, because we talked about the sampling, we've talked about the testing, we've talked about interpretation, and now let's talk about the recommendations coming down from IFAS. First, we do not test for soil nitrogen, and I'll show that why that we do not do that. And so our nitrogen recommendations are based off of the three regions of Florida: North, Central, South, and then which lawn grass are you growing: Bahia, Bermuda, Centipede, St. Augustine, Zoysia. And then you see a rate range here, kind of from a low to a high. We used to call it, low maintenance and high maintenance, and we did away with that terminology. And we just say, based off of the expectation of that landscape or the performance of that landscape, here's kind of the bookends of where you may need to be at. Now, there's a ton of factors. If you're in a very old landscape that has a lot of organic matter, then you probably would want to be on the low side of these recommendations. If you are in an area that is using reclaimed water, and that reclaimed water has high levels of nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus in particular, then you want to be on the low side of this, maybe even below the low side. And so don't necessarily read these numbers as saying you must be between this range. We don't want to exceed it, but you definitely could go below it. Again, depending on the health of landscape. And we historically show these by the 3 regions of the state. Next, this is why we don't test for nitrogen, is nitrogen is crazy dynamic in the system. It is constantly moving. These are all these different pathways of how nitrogen moves through the system. And so you could do a test today, go back tomorrow and do the exact same site, and we'll probably come back with a different number because nitrogen is very, very dynamic and the system is constantly changing. And that's why we do not at present do soil nitrogen testing. Now, some labs are starting to play around with a soil health and fertility analysis, and you will see this, and it's typically called Solvita. And you will see these estimates. Now, this is fascinating to me as a scientist. And one of the things we're doing is basically they're kind of looking at how microbes, soil microorganisms, are living in the soil and what are they breathing and what are they respiring. And from that, they get kind of some indication as to what potentially might be available from a nitrogen standpoint. This is interesting. We're doing a lot of work with this in the laboratory, but we don't have enough information here, in my opinion, and the opinion of other scientists, to use this information yet for nitrogen recommendations. We also have a tremendous number of fertilizer ordinances in the state. I think we're up to 132. And we have the fertilizer ordinance mobile website that you can go to, and you can see where these fertilizer ordinances in the state. It's also mobile friendly. So with your smartphone, you can literally be standing in the landscape, mash the button, and it'll tell you what ordinance issues are where you are physically standing. Or there's a better option. And let me introduce our brand new IFAS branded soil test kit powered by soilkit.com. This is a public-private partnership that we released on February 15th. And this is an easy-to-use testing platform with consumer-friendly results interpretation in this online interface. This new soil test kit provides direct linkages to IFAS resources, and including our extension publications. As you'll see here in a second when Christina starts to speak, we are linking it back to your county extension office in the county that you are at. We are also linking the soil test recommendations to the fertilizer ordinance app data, resulting in some location-specific application warnings. And so as we roll this thing out, you're going to get a one-stop shop of being able to know where all this information is, and it's right at your fingertips in this web portal that has been developed. One of the cool features and why I'm so excited about this, and again, this has kind of been in the works for many, many years, is that the data that is being generated off of this, off of these soil tests, we will be using to improve our landscape fertilizer recommendations. So we move beyond, 3 geographic regions in Florida. We could get really site specific, even down into neighborhoods, into developments, and understand the soils that are there and understand more information so that, again, we can improve. Why do we want to improve our fertilizer recommendations? So that we minimize our environmental impact. Christina will talk about the options, but we also have, the single pack, we have a twin pack, and then for you green industry professionals, we have the pro pack, which includes 12 soil kits. And then there are a ton of really cool features that Christina is going to elaborate on here in a second, of how this can be tailored to your specific business and to particular products for specific recommendations. Now, any good thing wants to get copied, and so we have also this. We saw just recently kind of a Me Too type product that was put out into social media, and they snagged the University of Florida logo and placed it on their product. It is not the same. This is not the University of Florida soil test kit that we're discussing today. And in fact, this organization has nothing to do with the IFAS branded soil test kit that we have here today. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn it over to Christina. I have known the Woerner family for 26 years, and Christina is part of is a member of the Woerner family. Woerner family has deep roots in agriculture in the Southeast, Alabama, and in Florida. And so Christina actually approached me back in 2017 with this idea, this concept, and it has really evolved into what you're going to be able to see today. And so with that, I'm going to hush up and turn it over to my friend, Christina McInnis.
Hey, y'all, can you hear me good? Thumbs up if y'all can hear me. I know everybody's kind of on mute. Am I good to go?
You're good to go. I can hear you.
Go. Hey, guys, I'm Christina Woerner McInnis. I'm a 5th generation farmer, and I'm the CEO of Agritech. So as you can see from this presentation, up until this point, University of Florida, IFAS, Dr. Unruh, and all of the research and scientists, they are the scientists, they are the research, they are the most intricate details of amazing knowledge I've ever seen. My job is to go beyond what the public sector is doing and go into the private sector, which is where most professional landscape professionals, municipalities, even on their landscape exist. And Dr. Unruh said it best at the very start of this. We are here to create real world solutions to the challenges we face. And that is why this product was brought to market. It started simply because to understand a soil test and to apply it to products, and then also to use it correctly, was becoming more and more difficult. Now, when this started, everyone thought I was crazy. And then suddenly I asked, well, then why are you buying a $2 bottle of water at the gas station when you left your house, it was free out of the faucet? Because you do pay for convenience. You pay because this is going to save you time. And also, when you're looking at your customers, they know that you're backed by science. You're not doing a lick of the finger and putting it in the air to figure out what's going on. You're taking the soil, you're being diagnostic, and you're providing the answers that are backed by science. And it's kind of like you go to the doctor, you're not feeling well. You can go to CVS and you can go get your multivitamin and hope that works. Or if it's not going so well, go to the doctor, pay a copay, draw the blood, take a look at the analysis, and see how you can prescribe it. It might not be an anemic issue, it might be a vitamin D, and then being told exactly how much to do for that. So this is a test to provide the answers specifically in the hands of the users in an extremely simple and easy way. If you guys have used the traditional soil test, you're comfortable with it, continue. That exists in the marketplace. But for many who have gotten away from soil testing, many who are confused, intimidated by it, how to understand how to use 2 pounds of nitrogen during the growing season, and then even knowing how just even different crops vary, putting all that together and applying it to the landscape. That's what we're here to do. Before I even introduce it, I want to tell you something about this is a physical product here that you look at. But all in all, what you're buying is the whole virtual world that exists beyond the catalyst start of the physical. Yes, it starts with a brown bag. It ends with a whole virtual experience. I love Tom's question about the normal ranges. Love that question. Those normal ranges are national normal ranges. We put those in there because we had a lot of feedback that people wanted to know. But now that we're specific to Florida and providing ratings, we will remove that. And Tom, if you log in on Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll see it's missing. So you've already gotten ahead of what's so amazing. As we provide, as we receive feedback from our users, within 2 weeks, this virtual world updates to an even greater product. So every 2 weeks, when you log into your dashboard, you're going to see a new change, a new development, because someone somewhere used the product and said, hey, this would be even better if it could do this. And then, okay, well, that's simple. We'll go build that. And so our job is to continue to make this as simple as possible. Okay, so here's the University of Florida soil test kit. Here is the single pack that we have. We also have a twin pack and we have a pro pack. Before we go to the pro pack, I kind of want to show you what this is. This is a brown bag. That's where you put the soil in. You have your postage paid and you have a customer care card that gives you everything. If you look at that QR code, if you're a landscaper out in the field or municipality, take your phone, hit the camera, scan it. It takes you to the registration page, puts the kit ID in and asks, hey, do you want me to geolocate you? So in a matter of literally 15 seconds, you've turned the camera on, you've gone to the website, you've entered in the kit ID, and you've already had your address put in. At that point, we're going to say, would you like to look at the satellite, the Google satellite? We'll pull the whole part. I'll show this in a minute. You'll drop the pins. We'll calculate the square feet if you don't know it. You'll choose the crop and you're done. You go collect the soil, put it there, put it in the postage paid. A couple different things before we go into the process. Here are the reviews. We've got 10 reviews. I think this one is probably, besides the gardeners who are sending me bumblebee lights of the day version and the night version, which are great. I think Be the Change Native Plants wrote here, this is the soil test of your absolute horticulture dreams. Before this test, I had to guess at shipping costs, pay outrageous sums for things like organic matter percentages. And she apparently was paying $300. The test tells you everything you want to know, including CEC, and it's super easy. I have every client of mine use one. So let's talk about how we can get the client to use one. Okay, so go to soilkit.com and purchase the kit. Now you can go to your IFAS local extension and they have the pay on use ones, but I want to specifically talk about the pro packs because I'm going to target the landscape professionals who are out there trying to figure out how to power buy, how to figure out what nitrogen is being split and how much to put in it. It's my job to help provide those solutions. UF and IFAS has published the most amazing science. I'm going to take that science and connect the dots to make it simple and easy. So let's go here. We're going to register. I've already started kicking off a new kit. I've already put my kit ID in. So we'll put in front yard here. This could be, if you're a landscaper, you may put the Jones residence, all different things. This is where if you're out, you can autofill. And let's see, because I'm here at the office, you know what? Let's enter into Florida, Creighton Road, Pensacola. And then you can choose the crop. Let's go, we're gonna go zoysia. And going back to it and some of the questions, I'm gonna try to, these are relatable to a home vegetable gardener. Yes, we have multiple different crop varieties that you can use. UF, we started off on some small categories, but we have the conventional organic. We are building those by the day. Well, no, not by the day, by the week. So every 2 weeks. So we're continuing to add another crop as we hear, but for the most part, we're covering a lot of like 90% of it. Square foot, you put in your square foot or you calculate Google satellites. So for instance, you'll just go hit Google satellite. You can drop your pins. I chose this one because this is my grandmother's garden center in Pensacola that she opened up in the 80s. And you can add areas. Let me move some of the Zoom things around. You can add areas and calculate. We do prefer that this test stay within a 10,000 square foot or less, but as you can see, combining the areas, I stayed underneath that threshold, around 6,000 square feet. I click review and I make sure that I get everything I need there and I click register. Then you're provided a quick little video if you need to watch that real quick, but that's a video on how to collect. But what I want to do is go look at specifically at this one kit that I've already done that is specifically for if you are a landscaper. The one thing I want to really reiterate is I take the science and marry the chemistry to the products that you're using in your lawn care program. So if you are using, well, let me flip your toggle. So you are the landscaper. This is your view. Let's say you're using Lesco products, but let's say you're shopping at multiple places. Let's say you get something from somewhere and something from the else. I want to show you that in a minute. But when you get the results, this is your view. This is the view as a landscaper that you view. You've got the University of Florida logo at the top. You have all of the kit ID information here. And a warning, these product recommendations are from Agritech. This is not IFAS. This is not University of Florida. They do not endorse these products. I go out and find the slow releases. I go out and find the chemistry, and I put it into your algorithm of what you're using to marry it to the results. Also, I'm providing you some warnings here that you need to be aware of, that you've got your local laws and regulations. You'll begin to see that even more. There's already a bunch built into these results, because you're only allowed a certain amount of nitrogen per application, certain amount of phosphorus. Those are already being built into this initial result. You even have a further click through to that interactive map Dr. Unruh showed. Now, let's say you get this to the bottom, you have everything, you still have your raw data. Say, for instance, something has occurred, you could still take it somewhere and use it as if you got it from the lab. You have all of your results and ratings that you have here, and then you have some element ratings. Let's say even you have a question for your IFAS. Click here, go directly to your IFAS extension county. Here's what's so wonderful about it. This share button right here is so powerful, because what happens is it alerts you, look, everyone's going to be able to see what's going on here. You can share this by email to the IFAS extension agent. You can share that whole report with your customer, and it looks just like that. So let's say you are ABC Landscape Company. You do this, and you have Jane Doe that you've just done this for. You click mail, you click this and text it to her and say, hey, Jane, we've got a plan for your program this year. Just going to give you the report of how we are being diagnostic with your lawn. Now, that's the complete view. But let's say, hey, I don't want to show Jane that I'm using LESCO 2803. She may want to go shopping somewhere with this report that you paid for. So we provide a customer review that eliminates various parts of this report. So at that part, before you share it with Jane, it's, hey, Jane, and I can even hide that if you want. But you can show her the science. Hey, look, Jane, this is what we found in the science, and then click share and provide that to her. You want to share it with the IFAS extension and you want to share everything, show everything. We can customize this report according to your business needs. Now, let's see, this is a fun part. Let's say, for instance, you want to go ahead and have some things put in your cart and delivered. You shop in a couple different places. I'll link it to where you shop. That's the thing about me. I'm not linked to a particular fertilizer company. I basically accommodate the landscape professional with the chemistry from the lab and the science to your products. I think this one shops at a different place. Yes, that one shops at a different place. So we have all different kinds of ways that we can customize this report to accommodate your business. Now, I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions and answers, but I want to tell you this. Now, I want to offer 2 promo codes in this webinar that's only valid to the end of May. Now, I know if this is recorded, it won't be valid if somebody shares this in the future, but want to throw out that we have 2 promo codes. UF Now is $5 off any UF product online at our store. So if you go to our store and you want to shop the University of Florida Pro Pack, you can go there. You can have the various products of the twin packs, and you've got the Pro Pack here. However, because this webinar is specifically targeted to the landscapers, and we are very eager to launch this with this program because it's so important to not only the landscape, your customers, and the environment, we are going to offer the Pro Pack at a deep discount to the end of May at $299.40, which is $24.95 a kit. Includes the postage, includes it, but it's a 12-pack, and it's in essence $24.95, and that's $299.40. The only way to get that redeemed, though, is you have to email me at order@soilkit.com. I'll put those details in the chat too. So just so you know, you've got those. That is just to get you jump started. We really want to start off with a launch with you guys. And again, kind of going back to Thomas, getting that feedback of how to make it better, or what does this mean, so that we can really fine tune this product to the Florida professionals. Okay, so I'm going to take a few minutes here and kind of turn this over to you guys and ask a few questions. Let's see. As a certified arborist, I'm usually testing, we have a woody tree and a dooryard citrus. So we do have 2 tree categories in there. I think we list them right here. Yes. So these are the plant varieties that we currently accommodate. We have Bahia. And then when it comes specifically, like you said, dooryard citrus, and it also, I think it calls it a woody tree too. So we've got that, and we've got those garden vegetables, organic and conventional. I'll probably what about mango and avocado trees? I would probably rely upon Dr. Citrus to see if dooryard citrus or woody would fall into that category on mango and avocado. Not at this time. Is the 4-inch depth good for testing the soil where fruit trees go or need to go deeper? I've always kind of stayed in, for when it comes to gardens and trees, I've always kind of stayed in that 4-inch range. But I'll let Dr. Unruh weigh in on if they need to go deeper, but that's kind of where we test from, because it kind of leaches and goes down. Best category for mixed landscape of palms and ornamentals without turf. Mixed landscapes. I'd probably put garden, because technically this is a garden. We just technically call it vegetables too. I'd probably put that, or, these are kind of your different categories of one. So I'd probably choose your garden category.
Let me interject into that, Christina. So one of the things, go back to the soil test, the results that come back from the lab, what is in the soil is what is in the soil, regardless to what you're growing on that. Where it comes down is taking that information and extrapolating it over to the actual recommendation. And this is, just being fully transparent. When we think about in turfgrass, it's really simple, right? We have 5 lawn grasses and we have 3 regions in Florida. In the ornamental realm, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ornamentals. And candidly, the specific nutrient requirements for that particular landscape plant, I'll probably just tell you, we don't know it, because there are thousands of those options out there. Now, there are some generalities, and you see that information, and Tom, you may want to jump in on that as well. There are some generalities when we think about landscape plants, but there are also some specifics, because if you're growing, some of the landscape ornamentals, I just drew a blank, have a requirement for pH, low pH. What is that? Has the balls on it that won't turn blue.
The hydrangeas.
Hydrangeas. Yeah, so the hydrangeas have very specific pH requirements. Okay, so the result that comes back from the lab is going to tell you what your pH is. Now, if you're growing hydrangea, it needs to be a particular pH, then we can, you then with your knowledge can then take that information and say, okay, I need to, to apply a particular product.
I'm going to verbally answer Veronica's question. What is the difference between this test and the one done in Gainesville that I referred to the homeowners? The one in Gainesville is a very simple and basic test, gives you what you just need for the growing season, 2 pounds of N and other different things. This test provides a very comfortable loop. Just think to yourself, I never leave the customer the whole time. We take the user, give them the kit. We help them register through QR scanning of the app or on their desktop. We provide Google Satellite. I can't tell you how many homeowners, how many even landscapers kind of lick their finger, throw in the air for how many square feet. I have people tell me all the time, I have 100,000 square feet. And I'm like, I don't think you understand what that means. But Google Satellite, when you drop the pins, helps you calculate exactly. Again, going back to why that's important. If you would have put 100,000 square feet, look how much fertilizer you're using when you go buy the bag. So really putting in perspective the customization, the technology, the software, the postage is paid, the test is paid, and ultimately the shopping list is provided. And being able to provide the product recommendations over and over and over again, reason we developed it, I had the customer come in, even the landscapers, and just say, hey, tell me what to pair with these results. Well, we empower the landscaper to be the knowledge at that point, to say, not only do I know what's going on, but I'm confident enough to share it with my customers to say, this is what your program and plan is. Exciting thing, like I said, every 2 weeks, you see something update. Next week, if not the following week, you'll see a whole new multiple breakdowns of nitrogen, because this tells you one feed, but we're going to tell you the next feed and the next feed and the next feed, because ultimately it's about doing it the right product at the right rate. So every 2 weeks, you'll come in and see something new in that virtual environment upgrade.
you have this screen up here, and let me drill down on this a little bit. Here's what you will need. Don't go too far. Here's what you will need. Okay. And so this tells you, you need a 50-pound bag of this. Well, do you really need 50 pounds for this 2,500 square foot? No, because here's how much to use. Of that 50-pound bag, you're only going to use 4.46 pounds. Now, if they sold a 10-pound bag, it would recommend you only to buy a 10-pound bag. But because this is a commercial product, and so it's actually going to tell you on a very site-specific basis how much product should be applied on that specific landscape that is whatever size was computed as well. And again, on the ProPack side of things, you can work with soil with Agritech. And again, if your preferred supplier is a Harold's or a Howard's or a Site One or whoever it is, that pantry, what was referred to as the pantry, can be tailored to the products and the relationships you have with those suppliers. One of the big questions we get is how does this differ from the existing soil kit or soil test done at UF? UF Lab, and the soil kit, they both use Malick 3 soil tests. Okay, so that the testing side in the lab is identical. What about the cost? The rough $30 versus the $10. I think it's important to put that up there. You're going to pay $10 for that test that is ran in our lab in Gainesville. You're also going to pay for the shipping to get that soil test or that soil sent up to that lab. So you're roughly at $10 there. So you're at a $20 price tag, and then you get a report like I showed in my presentation a second ago. It's got all the information there, but for 26 or 27 years, I've had folks tell me I have a difficult time understanding that report. And that is where this report is so much simpler. The other piece to all of this that is is the fact that we're also doing organic matter testing. And I think organic matter is a key piece of landscape management that has largely been ignored. I mentioned earlier that if you have a real high level of organic matter, remember that nitrogen cycle that we were showing? If you have high organic matter in your landscape, old landscapes that are real thatchy and all that, there is nitrogen in that thatch that will be mineralized and released from that organic matter over time, which should reduce the amount of fertilizer you should be putting in the landscape. Again, our goal is to provide a beautiful landscape with limited or no environmental impact. And so that organic matter piece is not included in the soil test that is sent to the lab in Gainesville, the old test. You can get it, it's an extra $10. So now you're at $30 to get that information versus roughly $30 in the Agritech soil kit. And so the prepaid mailer, we probably glossed over that a little bit. And so when you buy the kit, whether it's a ProPack, Twin Pack, or single kit, it includes the prepaid mailer. So you're out there in the landscape, take the soil, put it in the little brown bags, slip that in that prepaid mailer, literally stick it in the customer's mailbox. And when the post person drives by and picks it up, it's gone. It is off to the lab.
I'm trying to type some of these answers, so I'm gonna verbally say them also. To kind of go back, Kate Case, please elaborate about the recommended product list is not listed, linked. So Kate, let's say you buy a ProPack and you say, hey, here are my products that I use. You're going to tell me what you use, and then I'm going to take the guaranteed analysis and marry it to the science. Now, mind you, I can't write a product that isn't backed by science. So you can't give me a phosphorus product of a 16, 16, 16. I won't be able to use it. So I will ask you for specific phosphorus-free products and other things, and then I will take the science and marry it to the nitrogen. I don't care if that's a Lesco or this. It just has to fit the certain criteria of the science. I don't care where you shop. I'll just make sure those products marry it. So that way, whatever you're using, I'm trying to fit the results to what you're using. I'm not forcing you to go to a particular brand or product. If the homeowner is referred by the extension office, will the extension office get an email? If you purchased a pay-on-use kit from that extension, yes. Let's say you randomly get one somewhere that's not specifically to the extension, you can click share and send it to them, or we can offer that to them if they can search to a kit. But the easiest way is get one from the extension office that they have and or share in the results.
The kits that are available in all 67 IFAS County Extension offices are what we call pay-on-use kits. And so they're distributed freely at the county extension office. But that kit has to be activated by the client or by the customer. And so when they set it up, then they pay for that kit upon activation. And so we've provided all 67 counties with these kits, but they are pay on use. They don't do anything until somebody, pays for that fee. The other piece of this as well is all of the recommendations. So the 5 lawn grasses, the 3 regions in Florida, those rate ranges are all UF recommendations. There is nothing, Agritech will not make a recommendation that violates the recommendations that are coming from the University of Florida. And in fact, just recently, our phosphorus recommendations were changed. And so it's that minimum number that's coming out of the lab. And so we then turn around and make the changes within the system such that the system will not recommend phosphorus. It adheres to what the laws are and the rules and regs that are out there.
And here's how much, just to show you, going back to the different trees that we do offer. Dooryard citrus, we have the blueberry fruit trees, and then you have a woody ornamental shrub right here. So you do have a woody, you have a dooryard citrus in the trees there in this category, kind of going back to what's current right now. The question is here's how much to use. Is that recommendation based off the sum of the products listed to make a combination? So yes. You can mix a couple of them, mix well, think about NPK, we tell them just mix it really well. But at the end of the day, you may have some that are liquid, so you can't really exactly mix that. And then, your lime, might have a different spreader setting. So just kind of look at that and look at the back of the product labels to go into that. I'm trying to think let's see. I've gone over the promo codes. I've gone over.
You were going to type that promo code in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I knew I was waiting on something. Thank you. UF now okay, got it. We've got another. Okay. Thank you, Miss Rita. As a master gardener volunteer, I sent the same soil in, both IFAS and soil kit, as an experiment for our master gardeners. Our help desk committee shared and discussed the results. IFAS took 2 days longer to send me the results. And please share how I think the biggest thing is some days USPS may be that 2 days, and that does help people if they're up against a weekend. But I think the biggest thing is the power of being able to make actionable solutions too. Would love to hear how the solutions were provided. Did that provide ease on getting right to started, sitting down and doing the calculations? I do them all day, every day, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And a lot of people don't understand it.
One of the we recently had a test where the soils were taken and one portion of the soil was sent to the UF lab and one was sent through this process, and they came back and they were different. It was perceived to be different. And so when I got in and started looking at it, there are standards within laboratories relative to what the variability in that analysis, and there are guidelines, and the soil kit and the UF lab were both within the guidelines of differences. What was, I think where the confusion came is Christina, close that window and show that toggle back there, the pounds per thousand versus.
Oh, mhm.
So right there where Christina, so you can turn it from pounds to acre or pounds per thousand. And what was going on where confusion came in was the way in which the IFAS report, so that our UF lab in Gainesville reports things in parts per million and in different ways. And so when I went back in and I ran the math and did the conversions, they were spot on. And so they were not different. But it was the way in which that's that confusion that can come from these soil test reports. If you don't know how to compute, parts per million over to pounds per thousand, or pounds per acre, it gets really confusing. And so this toggle allows you, if you're used to working in pounds per thousand, which most in the landscape are used to working in pounds per thousand, that's how it's going to report. If you're one of those odd people that likes pounds per acre, you can toggle that over. Now, if you want metric units, kilograms per hectare, we'll probably have to do a little more programming for that.
Well, we are implementing the parts per million next Wednesday. That one launches. Again, every 2 weeks, another feature launches. Parts per million. We did have a couple feedback, so we will have that launch next week.
There is a caveat in this potting soil is not soil generally, and so you don't want to confuse that. And so if you are growing, in these potting soils, you're going to see some interesting results if you go that route. Tom, what most potting soils, they don't even contain soil. They're bark, pine bark, and perlite, and
most people are using soilless medias out there.
Yeah, so we're doing a soil test, not a soilless media test. So we want to make sure we provide some clarity. Tom, you work with this audience day in and day out, and have for many years. What questions might you have or can think of?
I think Tom's. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant
Go
Tom
ahead,
in
Christina.
the
I'm
chat.
sorry.
I thought you meant Tom in the chat. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm just. I think that this is such a great tool. One of the things we've heard over the years from all kinds of folks is that the report generated by the IFAS Soil Lab, while it is the same results, it's just hard to understand. And it's, people bring that in, they bring it into the extension office, and they, what do we do with this? And, some of our professionals out there are real good at interpreting that. Some aren't as good at interpreting that. And so this is a tool that makes it real easy. I love the way that it can be shared with a client and personalized with what you're sharing with the client. So it really provides a lot of fantastic resources out there. It's really easy to use. I've used it myself, and it's a system that just not only is easy to use, it has the prepaid mailer. It also then gives you those great results. So I think that this partnership has a long way to go as far as we're building goodwill really fast. I think we'll see super positive results. I'm loving the comments that we're seeing come back, and I just can't wait to see this continue to grow. And I'm really anxious for our professional audience to begin using the Pro Packs.
I think Thomas has a really good comment that we're working on right now. Thomas, going back to, let's say somebody is offered a very, very small area, maybe like one blueberry bush, but yet we're trying to not hit the phosphorus, trying to get a particular slow release on it, and various different things. We are maturing that. And the one feedback we want to get is, and even bag sizes. So as we get the different bag sizes, we would like to hear from you if there's a particular product that would be a better fit in the marketplace. So that is one thing that we're working for. And then we're even in the future, even trying to find the better price fit in the marketplace. So say there is 2 comparable ones, we're not there yet, but then one goes on sale. Trying to be able to talk to various people's APIs when price goes into fluctuation, that all is coming down. But the most important thing is right now, trying to make sure that the need matches a reasonable bag size and offer different bag size availability. And on Wednesday, we're releasing a tweak to that, but it still needs a lot of feedback from the users on that. So if a homeowner does this directly without a professional, what would their shopping list look like? They don't have a, well, we basically, I just go in and assign kind of what I've gotten as a feedback from homeowners, kind of going back to the espomas. They like the espomas. They like the fertilome. So I just go put a couple things in the pantry and I let the algorithm go pick it. So basically what they would see is, let me move a couple of different things. They would see something similar to, let's see if I have a generic one set up without the, no, I don't have a generic one, but they receive basically of smaller bags for sure. They would receive, this one's hidden. Let's see. They would receive a little bit more of like these superphosphate fertilome, like that's a fertilome. So what I do is I put in, the good thing about the homeowner is like landscape professionals, they usually operate at like Site One, Ewing, Lowe's, Home Depot with 50-pound bags. They like the big bags. They're not there to buy these little tiny bags. So we try to write things big, but the homeowner, I have like multiple different brands and sizes. And so the algorithm will go pick the smallest one for them. But there is the problem with a couple different things you'll get on that, like slow release need, the nitrogen need, and then you'll go and hit where there's a 0 phosphorus. And we're still kind of maturing, trying to find that in the marketplace.
That's what, and Christina mentioned earlier, that all the recommendations are coming from Agritech, and there's that little disclaimer right there that you see. But I will also tell you that as we are in this partnership, that I'm looking at products as well, and offering some guidance there in the sense of reviewing products to make sure that something's not, out of whack. There is also the ability to do the organic versus not. Now, you in the commercial audience likely know as well that the organic product list, though it's growing, is pretty small, and then they're typically more costly, and so those are some options that are there as well.
Somebody in the industry in a consumer goods industry said, wow, this is absolutely amazing. The marketplace has been wanting it, but you're having to write this journey because nobody has written this before. So we are writing this, which is why it's so critical to receive this feedback of how to make it better. And I would appreciate, especially Tom, if you could email me, Christina at Soil Kit, give me kind of an example of a solution you would, because I don't always live on the other side of the table on that customer with that particular use case, and even maybe a local co-op that was around. But what I've noticed is certain even regions of the area, because I deal nationwide, have favorites, especially in the Midwest. I accommodated a particular group of stores around Woerner fertilizer that was a local favorite for everybody. And we made that as if the science matched to a particular. If you could kind of give me a little feedback on maybe some regional favorites that go in there, I'll take that science and make sure that it gets into the algorithm. And the order site for the soil kit is soilkit.com. Yes, you can go into your extension agent and get a pay on use. But yes, what you do is you order at soilkit.com, and we are looking at getting it at the UF bookstore. Stay tuned. Like I said, we're constantly taking one step at a time. So, and then we're also launching it on Amazon. Stay tuned for that. We haven't had enough time. Amazon likes to buck things that have collegiate trademarks on them. So give me a little time on that, but you'll be able to get it on Amazon Prime too very shortly. I heard there's a kit available for Cape Pod, Massachusetts. Yeah, go to soilkit.com, buy the regular soil kit. It won't have the Florida regulations. It will have different regulations. But don't be afraid of using the UF one. I mean, people outside of the state of Florida use it. It's just, you know, it's very specific and tailored to Florida soils. I'm trying to make sure we get these open questions. Let's look. Is there a preference on how to deliver micronutrients? I'm going to let Dr. Unruh talk about how to deliver iron. You want to go for that one?
You betcha. Ton of research that we've done, published it. We can send you reports. So basically any micronutrient that you're applying in a Florida soil, most of them are oxidized about as fast as they hit the ground. Especially if they're going out in a granular. So when you look at the products, if you're looking at a bag of fertilizer and you see any product that says oxide, like iron oxide, magnesium oxide, it's already oxidized. So let's step this back a little bit. We all know that if you apply fertilizer, a granule fertilizer that has a micronutrient in particular iron on concrete, it stains it, right? Well, that process of staining, that element is being oxidized. That exact same reaction happens in the soil, and it happens very, very quickly, within hours. And so most micronutrients applied to our soils are oxidized, which means they're not available to the plant. Okay. And so our recommendation, and I'll speak this primarily for turf, I suspect it's similar for ornamentals, is you want to use a foliar applied micronutrient source. And so when you see the word oxide, think about rust. Iron oxide is a bag of rust. Do not use a bag of rust on your landscape. So foliar apply micronutrients.
All right. I think we've got all the questions. This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for presenting this to us. You know, I know for all of you out there in the audience, this video will be made available on the Florida Friendly Landscaping website, so you can always go back and refer folks to it. We also have a webinar next week as well. That's our normally scheduled professional webinar is coming up on May 9th at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And that's with Debbie Mola from Walt Disney World. She'll be presenting on how to create beautiful container gardens. So please make sure to fill out the survey that was sent to you. That does help us provide the best webinars possible to help you. And we do look at those as we plan the upcoming year. So everybody, thank you so very much. Christina, Dr. Unruh, thank you so very much for presenting this, and you guys have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.